I grew up in the Bay Area in San Francisco and enjoyed my high school and University of Santa Clara education. And then I put in 2 years in Frankfurt, Germany as an officer in the U.S. Army. I went through ROTC at Santa Clara. Went to law school for a half a year. And then I dropped out to see if I couldn't pursue something in sports. Well, that led to broadcasting 5 years in AAA baseball, 2 in Tacoma and 3 in Salt Lake City. And after that, I caught my break coming to Toronto in 1982 to begin my 36-year career here. And that's what brought me to Toronto and St. Mike's. Well, when we were in Salt Lake City, our boys were born there through Catholic Charities. And we were very fortunate to have 2 boys, Ben and Joe. Ben was 5, Joe was 3 when we moved here to Toronto for me to take the Blue Jays job. But my wife, Mary, and I have always emphasized education. I did that for 25 years as a basketball coach as well. So they went through Islington Middle School, and then after that, they had an opportunity, having gone through the advancement program, to go to Martin Grove, the school for the advancement kids in the middle school, or St. Mike's. And I love the reputation that St. Mike's had, both academically and athletically. So I told my wife, I said, let's invite our boys to go to St. Mike's. We'll have them come in on the subway through Etobicoke. And after that, Ben came here in 1996, Joe the next year, and I'm so happy they did. When you start to look around for an education, you ask people about various schools. And in this case, your reputation precedes you. And I'd heard a lot about St. Mike's. And with an emphasis on education, I remember taking Ben down to St. Mike's. He wasn't sure about the school, and I said, let's go down and visit. The first person I ever met was Father Bud Cullen. He was a wonderful friend. He became just part of our family. He was a Basilian father. I had gone through a Jesuit university at Santa Clara. I knew nothing about the Basilians. But when I found out what Bud Cullen was all about, Father Cullen introduced me to family, and the family was St. Mike's. At that particular point, we began to follow St. Mike's. Ben came here, Joe the next year, and Father Cullen and his brother Ron became great friends of ours as well. You want mentors. You want people in your life who are going to make a difference. And they're looking beyond high school to university and colleges. And then after that, follow your heart and do what you want to do. And I saw that not only from the Basilian fathers, but so many teachers. And St. Mike saw how you could enjoy the moment and then also be someone who, beyond sports, when that comes to an end, now your life really begins because you have been schooled and mentored to make a difference. When I see our 2 boys, Ben and Joe, here at St. Mike's, it reminds me of where I started at the University of Santa Clara, Jesuit school in the San Francisco Bay Area in Santa Clara. I was influenced by Father John Shanks, Jesuit priest, who next to my father was easily the most influential person in my life. He took me under his wing when I was a freshman. He said, Jerry, you only have 1 burner going on that stove. Let's get all 4 going. And by that, what I want you to do as well is volunteer. Get out and do something beyond your education here at Santa Clara. And do it right here in the 4 years that you're here. But volunteer to do things. Get involved with projects. Do more than just read books and study and get a grade point average. And when I began to think about that, I started to volunteer. And after that, once you start, things become very easy. So I saw that in St. Mike's. My boys saw that as well. Get out and do something. And remember, it's a big sphere out there. And that's where you can certainly make a difference when you're volunteering or making a difference in people's lives, where you're getting away from yourself with an other-directed life that has to do with Christian values. And when I think of Father Shanks in my life and the influence I had, and then I think of Father Bud Cullen and all the great priests here at St. Mike's, let alone the faculty and staff, I think, thank you, St. Mike's, for all you did for my family. When I grew up, I was very fortunate to be around a lot of healthy people. And then when I came to Toronto, we began to befriend families who had kids with Down syndrome. And later, Tom Henke, one of the most famous Blue Jays of all time, with 4 kids, his 3rd Amanda, born with Down syndrome. That said for me, Jerry, let's get involved, volunteering again, with Special Olympics. And for 29 years, I almost hit the 30 mark, I was able to give of my time through the Etherington family, Brian and Bruce Etherington, for Special Olympics, and hosting a breakfast every morning, going back to 1985, first at the Royal York, and then wherever it happened to be held after that in downtown Toronto. Special Olympics meant a lot to me, and I told our boys too, when you're around kids who are not as fortunate as you, lift them up, because they will lift you up at the same time. Kids with Down syndrome have beautiful hearts, wonderful souls, they're open to everything, they smile, they love life, sometimes far more than those around us. And because of that, that became a part too of my kids' lives. When I think of Father Bud Cullen and the great stories that I had with him over the years here at St. Mike's, I didn't realize he had a brother also in the Basilians. Ron Cullen was over in Windsor, and I found out later he was in the Windsor Baseball Hall of Fame. Later, when both retired, I had the pleasure of going over and meeting him when Bud invited me over to the Basilian Father residency. I did not know that Ron was blind at that time. He was also in a wheelchair. I was in their room together, and they began to share stories with me, and especially Ron, who at that particular time, as I said, was sightless. And he said, "Jerry, one thing you really helped me with was you painted pictures on the radio when I heard the Blue Jays broadcast. Thank you so much for, at the end of my life here, making a difference." It was enough for me to start to cry as I am right now. That's what Father Cullen's, Bud and Ron, meant to me. I didn't go here, but I attended St. Mike's for 6 years, the 5 years that Ben was here and one more year after that with Joe. And I say that because I attended sporting events. I attended classroom activities. I attended Mr. Paul Petkevich's music classes and trips that they took outside of Canada. I had an opportunity to attend Jamie Oates' jazz band, which my son Ben was in and played guitar in. I began to see people who meant a lot in their lives for other people. And that's what we wanted, and it all started right here.